And what do we think of the new camera? Anybody? Anybody? I feel like it's... Oh... Listen, there is nothing I love more in this entire world than answering all of you guys' wonderful questions about the language learning process. You know, anything I can do to clarify, you know, help somebody out with a problem they're having with their language studies, primo for me. Love it. But there is one question that I get that, I'm sorry to say, I have absolutely grown to hate. And that is, for me, I don't like hearing that word come out of my mouth, but that's how strong I feel about this question. And it's not because I'm annoyed by the question or by the person asking it, but rather hearing this question reminds me of all the misinformation there is out there about language learning, and that makes me angry. That misinformation, I'm here to shield you from it, okay? The question of the day is, how long does it take to get fluent in a language? The short answer is it takes however long you make it take, and that is a very unsatisfactory answer, but it's not a good answer because it's not a good question. So let's talk about some better questions and some better answers, shall we? But wait just a minute. If we're talking about time, we should talk first about how much you have of it. If you're like me and always have a lot on your plate, sometimes it can get difficult to balance your language studies with, you know, the normal hullabaloo of life. But even when I don't have that much time, I take speaking classes, and for that I use Lingoda, and you should too. So here's some stats. Lingoda is an online language school that offers group and private classes 24/7 in 4 different languages, which are English, Business English, Spanish, French, and German. Is that 5? No, because Business English and English are the same language, duh. You silly Billy. Anyways, once you sign up for Lingoda, you can literally take your classes whenever and wherever you want because it's all online and Lingoda teachers teach worldwide. And this is especially important to me because I travel a lot and I don't like that to interrupt my language studies. I like it to flow, okay? And Lingoda is really, really simpatico with that. Now, when I first started using Lingoda all those years ago, I would probably say it was 2020. For German, I was still really, really shy to speak in German, but the fact that I could start off in group classes and build my way up to solo classes, that was really helpful and helped me to step outside of my comfort zone, but like at my own pace, you know? But group classes are great. They're not something that's offered by every language learning practice platform, so that's something with Lingoda that I find really unique. And Lingoda has flexible plans for every kind of learner, you know, whether you want to start off in group classes or solo classes, whether you want 4 classes a month or 40 classes a month, they have something for you. And Lingoda is offering a free 7-day trial. So in this trial, you can either choose to take 3 group classes or 1 solo class, whatever's your preference. And if you decide to continue with Lingoda after the initial trial period, you'll get an additional 30% off whatever plan you choose. So I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty good to me. Who doesn't like free stuff? Okay, all right, back to the video. Let's talk about why time questions are wrong, okay? There are a handful of reasons that time-based questions, like with regard to language learning, are just nonsensical, confusing, misleading, every bad adjective, actually. For example, this is what happens when you ask me the question, Elise, how long did it take you to learn Spanish? This may seem like an innocent, unassuming question, but this question is super assuming because it assumes 3 things. Now, the first incorrect assumption is that I'm done learning Spanish. I feel like this question assumes that I've passed some sort of check line, and that's not the reality. There's always new expressions, there are always, regional and dialectical differences you'll discover, and most importantly, languages evolve with time. Like, for example, with the Spanish, a linguistic change in a topic that's become a really, really important topic in the last, I would say, 10 to 20 years is lenguaje inclusivo. And this is basically just gender-neutral language. So instead of saying todos, you say todes, or something in that realm. That's a prime example of learning is a forever process, and we should honor that. The second assumption this question makes is that learning is linear, but in reality, it's fluctuating all the time. Just because I've been learning German since 2015 doesn't mean that I've been consistently studying the language for 7 years. If I tell you flatly, I've been learning German for 7 years, all that tells you is my starting point. It doesn't tell you my level, it doesn't tell you how much effort I've been putting in, it doesn't tell you if I've taken, a 3-year break, which I have. And there's all this information missing. So it's misleading in my case because just because I've taken 7 years to get to this point doesn't mean everybody's going to take 7 years. And lastly, this question assumes that a certain amount of time equals a certain amount of progress. It does not. Let's say there are 2 people both studying the same language for a year, but they have different approaches. The first person, super dedicated, studies 3 to 5 days a week, takes speaking lessons all the time, the whole 9 yards. Whereas the second person is a lot more casual with their studies. They might do some flashcards here and there. Maybe they practice their speaking once a month or so, but if you ask both of these people after the year that they've studied, what's your level? You're going going to get two different answers, and that's because time does not equal a certain amount of progress. The reason that I don't like answering time-based questions around language learning is because we often weaponize the answer against ourselves. It's hardly ever a positive conversation when we talk about time, and I feel it often only serves to make us feel worse about ourselves. Like, we hardly ever use time to talk about our studies or our progress positively. It's always like a measure of comparing and measuring, and oftentimes like holding ourselves to really harsh standards. Standards that are often set not from what you think you can achieve based on what kind of learner you are, but standards that are just imported from somebody else's journey and you've decided to put yourself to as well. Personally, as a language YouTuber, I know that people look to me all the time for some kind of guidance. So if I tell you, it took me X amount of months or years to learn X language, that becomes like a model for you. And I don't want you to compare yourself to me. I want you to compare yourself to you. What did you achieve last week and how much better did you do this week, and so on. Think about this one, okay? Almost any time-based question regarding language learning can be answered instead not with time, but with effort. How long does it take to learn French? I don't know. How much effort are you going to put in? That affects the answer. Another question. I've been studying Italian for 3 years and now I want to switch to French. Is that too soon? I don't know. How much effort have you been putting in? These questions, any iteration of like, how much time? Is this too soon? How much longer? It's a moot point. Honestly, there are so many more things that are more important than time. Time is irrelevant. Forget time. Forget it. What matters is how much effort you put in, how focused you are, the quality of the activities you're doing. If you're studying any other languages, if you have any conflicts, those are much more important things to consider in your language learning journey than how long. But don't get me wrong, there are examples of time-based questions that I actually welcome and I think that are good questions. Like, for example, how much of my time learning German should I spend on speaking? I think that is a great example of a good time-based question because it's proportional, not just quantitative of like how many minutes, how many hours, how many days, how many years, It's how much of my time learning this language, like what proportion of my time should I spend on this certain skill? Perfect question. As long as your time-based questions are about you and what you think to be best for yourself and not just you, copy and pasting how much time somebody else spends into your own routine, you'll be golden. Every learner is different. We all have different starting points and different linguistic backgrounds. We have different reasons for learning languages, so we require different amounts of time to understand different languages. So there's no one answer. There's no one amount of time that is the magic key to any language. So don't focus on some arbitrary standard of time. Focus on what feels good to you, activities that you like, and put your heart into it. That's all I gotta say about that. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the little bell button down there to get a notification every single time I post. And what do we think of the new camera? Anybody? Anybody? I feel like it's smoothing my skin. Or maybe I just have really smooth skin. Honestly, I'm skeptical of this camera. I still have to figure it out. Okay, bye!